Are most of these buildings owned one-off, or they tend to be owned, the same owner owns lots of these? And I know that the New York real estate families and dynasties of New York tend to own a lot, but when you specifically segment this part of the market out, are a lot of these folks people that have already owned it 30, 40 years? Maybe their basis is really low and they can afford to hang on. And just like generally speaking, how are they owned?
Yeah, generally, folks own more than one building. There are a bunch of people that just own one, but generally, I would say people have 2, 3, 4 buildings, and then there are some folks that own dozens. But I'd say if you looked at the median ownership, it's probably 3 or 4 buildings. But I think the issue with a lot of these, and again, I said that the average in New York, when somebody buys a building, they own it for 40 years. So half the buildings are owned for more than 40 years. There are a lot of buildings that have been owned for many, many decades, where 2 or 3 folks got together, bought the building years and years ago. Today, they're into the 3rd generation, and there may be 30 people that are getting checks from that building, many of whom are passive, and the buildings are older. If you want them to be competitive from a leasing perspective, you have to put a lot of money into the buildings, renovate the lobby, the elevators, the windows, HVAC, bathrooms, etc. And folks are used to depositing checks, not writing checks. And so those are almost zombie buildings, because you can't lease them because they're not upgraded, and you can't upgrade them because the owners don't want to put the money in. And so what happens to that building? That's a real issue for a lot of people who are trying to figure out what to do. And they may have to sell a partial interest in the building or do a long-term master lease to somebody that's going to put the money into the building. So those a lot of folks are dealing with those kind of issues now with that type of property.